Welcome to another tutorial in the Meteor Dispatches series. This time we're creating a Meteor React app that contains some kind of a restricted content. And this is something we all know from some SaaS, software as a service, or some web applications with commercial background, that some features are free and some features are paid only. But the question is, how do we going to implement this in the Meteor app? And with this tutorial, we're showing you how to do it. It's easy and it takes about 30 minutes, so you can open your console and just follow along, and then you can see the output right away and continue coding as you want. So first of all, open your console and create a new Meteor React application. For this, we're typing meteor create --release 3.0 -rc.4. This will soon not be required anymore once Meteor 3.0 is out there, but we are using the latest release candidate for this. Then we just enter a name, and this is, we call it analytics. So let's say we create some analytics dashboard where the user gets only information if they're subscribed on the Pro plan. Not big thing, right? And while this is using the React skeleton, as you can see, because React is the default front-end engine for Meteor, but it also supports other front-end engines. And there are other tutorials out there from us that will cover these front ends like Vue, Svelte, Solid, and also Blaze. But this time we're using React. Okay, fine. So let's go into the project. And now we need to implement to add some packages, because these packages are basically the ones required for the permissions. And first of all, we need React Meteor accounts. Yeah, but we also want to use a landing roles. And we are installing these for here. Oh, I forgot, we also need accounts password. No problem, we're adding them. Oh, okay, we need a different version of a landing roles here, but that's not a problem. So if you encounter this, a version incompatibility, let's open our project called analytics. And then there's this file .meteor packages. Let's open that, and then let's use the latest a landing roles, which is 4.00 -alpha.4, which is the latest one compatible with Meteor 3. But we also need one more Meteor package, and this is accounts -password. You can also, instead of using the command line interface, you could also edit this packages file. Both work fine. So these are important, but we also want to render the analytics, and I'm using Plotly for this. I like Plotly because it's really easy, out of the box, zero config, and this totally fits with the Meteor philosophy, having things out of the box, zero config, but always configurable if you need it to behave differently. And for that, we enter meteor npm install --save plotly.js and react -plotly.js. This is a nice wrapper for React, making Plotly available as a React component. So it's installing these packages, and from here we're basically safe already with our packages and dependencies. This is all we need, and we can easily run this application using the meteor command and open our browser on localhost 3000. As you can see, by the way, in the command line, you can see that these packages have been updated automatically because we changed the packages file down there, and then this has been picked up by the Meteor build system, and it automatically updates the correct dependencies as you need. Okay, so this is running on localhost 3000, and this is the basic Meteor React application. As you know, when you create a new Meteor application, has some basic reactivity out there, inside there, but that's it. And if we take a look into the folder structure, then we can see mostly there are some React templates here. This is the app.jsx. This is the entry point for our React application. We have 2 templates in there, hello and info. And we don't want to code a lot here that is not related to this permission system. We want only have one template here. So we delete the hello template out of it, but we keep the info template in there. And as we save and reload, then you can see that the hello template is now gone here. It has been reloaded using the built-in hot module reload HMR. And we only have the info template in here. That's fine for now. But now we want to add some accounts and have some restricted area and so on. And for this tutorial, we use a predefined set of users. We don't want to implement this big user management system now. So we create our settings.json file. This file, settings.json, is basically some kind of a .env file. You may know not .env, but for Meteor. It's just a settings file that is only available at runtime as kind of an environment variable. And we want to create some users here, and not in a way that we do in the production app, because this is not our focus right now. So we create a user with username foo and a default password called password. As you know, don't do this in production. This is just a trick to make this work very fast, to make a proof of concept very fast. And we created 2 roles. We want to create 2 roles here. We want to have the standard role, the free plan, and we want to have another role as a paid plan. And the scope for these roles are called plans. Why is this? Because you could have roles with the same name but under different scopes. Of course, you could also have a global scope. And how this is working out, I will show you in a minute. So let's just continue to write down these roles here. So the username foo will be on the free plan, while the username bar will be on the pro plan. And the scope is, of course, plans. So we have defined these, that's fine, but we also need to integrate them. First of all, in order to make this settings file available for Meteor, we have to run the Meteor application with a different parameter. We have to run meteor -- settings equals settings.json, assuming the settings.json is in the project root, which is here located in the project folder root. Then it's running this application and injecting the settings file, making it available, of course, only on the server unless you put things in a property named public. But we don't do that here. We want to have this only on the server. And as you can see, when you open the server main.js file, there's lots of boilerplate code from the example repository. We don't want that. This is basically something we don't need here. Let's remove this boilerplate code for now, so that we just have this clean setup, import Meteor from Meteor and the Meteor startup. This is all we need for now. And then we're basically writing a very short roles implementation and then continue on the client. So on the server, this is really minimalistic. We first want to import accounts, because we need the accounts package in order to create accounts from these users here. I will open this in a second panel so you can see both. Okay, so these users here should be created, but not only the users, we also want to have the roles available. And for roles, we use the previously added package meteor/a-learning _roles. This is the de facto package for roles and role-based permissions in Meteor, and it manages everything out of the box for you, but it's still configurable if you need it differently. So first of all, we want to create these 2 roles. We want to create a free role for the scope plans and a pro role for the scope plans. In order to do that, we run await roles.create role async, and the name is free, and the scope is plans. This is basically how we do it. And we do the same for the pro role. This is then, and there is no error if you do this every time the Meteor server starts up. This is totally fine. It will detect this, that these already exist, and then it's fine. Now we want to load the users. So we get the users from Meteor settings. I'm using object destructuring here, so I could also write meteor.settings.users, but I'm using this pattern. It's easier to read for me. Now I'm using a for loop and not for each, because we want to have this async. So I'm using the for loop for const users, username, password, role, and scope. This is basically destructuring this object inside this loop of users. And because we're writing this in a for loop, in a for of loop, we can sequentially loop through these in an async context. So what we do here is we first need to check if the user exists, because if the user exists, we don't want to create it again, okay? But accounts provide something for us. It's called accounts.findUser by username. And then of course the username, in these cases, it's either foo or bar. And if it doesn't find a user, then we want to create the user and also add it to the roles. So we write user ID equals await accounts dot create user, and this function accounts dot create user, this always returns the user ID of the created new user, and we want to add password and username for this user. And if there is something problematic, then it will throw an error anyway, but that's fine. So with this user ID, we want to add the user to the existing role we have defined here. So we want to add the user foo to the role free and the scope plans, and then the same for bar with the roles pro and plans. We do that by using roles dot add users to roles async, and then passing the user ID and the role and the scope. This is basically what we do here. This is all fine, and then sometimes I like to check these things just by adding some console output here. Let's say not in debug, but info created new user, and then username, role, scope. And let's save this file, and then Meteor should pick this up and automatically run this for us. Oh, there is, oh, created new user, missing roles param. This is interesting. Oh, because there is a typo. Yeah, things can happen from time to time. So I created this user, but now there is a problem, and that is the user is not created again. There was an error adding this user to the roles. This is problematic. How can we solve this? We can solve this by opening the Meteor console. So go into the project analytics, Meteor Mongo. Then it's open the MongoDB console, db.users.remove. I'm just removing them. This is fine. Remove these users, and then I can exit the console, clear, and then let's just change the file to make Meteor pick up the again. Okay, now we created a new user foo with the free plan and create user bar for the pro plan. So our model is now set up. This is fine. We have now 2 users and assigned them certain roles. Okay, but how do we make content only available to the pro user? There is one caveat here. We could now in the client check if this is the pro user and then just render things for the pro user. But this could be circumvented, so we have to do this on the backend level. We need to have data only sent to users on the pro plan, and we can use Meteor methods for that. We can write a method called getAnalytics, And this function basically checks if the current user, oh, of course it's an async func, sorry. This function checks if the current user is a pro user, and if it's not a pro user, it should throw an error. And we can do that because of the meteor counts package just by destructuring user ID from this context of the method. So every method in Meteor has, when the accounts password package is active, automatically the user ID assigned to the method. So this is part of Meteor's awesome out-of-the-box authentication capability. And with this user ID, it's the same user ID that was used here when the user was created by accounts create user. We can use this user ID now to check if the user is a pro user by await roles.user is in roles async, and then the user ID, and then pro, because that's the role we seek, and the plan's scope. So with this code, we're checking if the current user is a pro user. And as you can see, I had a typo again. It's called roles, and then it's correct. Now, you may ask why some of these methods always have these is in role async or add users to roles async. This is because in Meteor 3, everything is async, and before that, it was sync style using fibers in the background, providing the async functionality. And these are now two functions in the same package in order to be backwards compatible. This is mostly it. And if this is not a pro user, what are we gonna do? Of course, we're going to throw a new meteor.error, adding a nice error code 402 payment required. You need to be on the pro plan. Okay, so free users will not get this content, and the pro users, they will get some analytics. And I'm making up some numbers now. This is just for proof of concept that you can see that this works. So let's add just a few numbers here right out of the box to simulate something. On the y-axis, some values, some numeric values. On the x-axis, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and now we have some kind of analytics data. In a real world setup, you would have this analytics data stored in the DB and now getting crunched and then sent to the user. But that's basically what we want to achieve here. Only send the data to the pro users, and everybody who's not pro user is getting nothing, getting thrown error. Last thing on the back end, and then we go finally to the front end and do some React stuff. We want to have the client be aware that the current user is a pro user. Even if the analytics method already tells us this, we don't want to throw an error all the time. We just want to call the method from the client when the user is a pro user. And in order to make the client aware of the current user's role, we can run meteor publish and say my roles, and then in this function, if this.user ID, so if there is a logged in user subscribing to this, because there could also be a non-logged in user subscribing to this by using the browser console, but we don't do that. We just return meteor.roles assignment. Now you might ask, what is meteor roles assignment? I never role assignment. I never heard about this. This is the underlying collection on the server that stores the roles relations between users and roles. And there is an entry called user._ID. That's basically the field, this.user ID. And with this query, or this cursor, we can ensure that the current user subscribing to this will know their own roles on the client. So this is now our backend. This is it. 3 things: a startup method, checking, creating roles, checking if there is a user to be created, a meteor method that throws an error if the user is not on a pro plan, otherwise returning the analytics data, and a publication to let the client know what the user's current roles are. And from here, we can go into the client now. So I show you the client again. There is nothing really happening right now, but we have to go into the app package here, and then we go into the info. And this shows now loading, and that wasn't what it showed before, right? And I can tell you why, because this is still the boilerplate code here. So we can remove this boilerplate code for now. Let's do it even differently. Let's say on the app.js X, let's use on the app.js X one more thing. Let's display a message that you need to log in before it shows you anything. So we import a nice React hook from the Meteor core packages, which is use user from React Meteor accounts. This is one of the packages we added earlier in this tutorial, if you remember, React Meteor accounts, and this contains use user. And this is a very nice way to get the current user reactively while keeping sure that the React rendering logic is working properly. So you don't have to write all the effects and find and fetch and use the tracker, which is Meteor's reactive system, and then combine it with React. You just use the hook use user. And that's the nice thing here. If the user is available, then if it changes from not available to available, it will automatically cause React to re-render as you know it from effects and states and so on. And with this user, instead of rendering info here, we render conditionally. So if there is a user, then we want to render info. And if there is no user, we want to render a simple message. Please sign in to view analytics. Okay, so let's check the page, and then we can see how that's working. So this is the page now. Welcome to Meteor. Please sign in to view the analytics. Okay, let's try to log in. I could write a login form and all that stuff, but with Meteor it's even easier. So if you want to do some proof of concept work, it's even easier for you. I'm zooming in here a little bit. So you can just open your browser console and then you enter Meteor login with password and then foo and then password. And then as you see, it changed from please log in to loading. And this loading comes from the info template because they're still trying to subscribe to this outdated thing here, to this outdated subscription. But we don't want that. We just remove that for now, and then we add here like analytics, and then we change this to my roles. And why do I change this to my roles? Because this subscription, which is wrapped in use subscribe, this is the same as with use user. This is a hook that allows us to subscribe to a publication and reactively change based on if the publication is complete or not. And if I go back to server, there is the publication of my roles. That's the name of it. And this is why I'm writing this here. And when I'm entering this, so now, then it's still loading and it has been updated. That was the HMR, but it has been updated. The publication is complete. You see now this analytics here. And coming from here, we can now basically do the selective rendering of the free and the pro plan differences. So let's say we have a user ID which we get from use user ID, and then we want to check the role by this user ID because we've subscribed to the roles and the user ID is used as a relation, and we can determine the current role from there. Of course, we could just render things by the current role, but again, this is not safe. It can be circumvented on the client because users can open the browser console and do anything they want on the client, and therefore we just do this as some kind of UI candy, as user experience support. And first of all, I'm copying this use user, but instead of use user, I say use user ID, which is the method the same as use user, but it just returns the user ID. We don't need the full user object here. And then we can keep that as it is. But now we want to have an effect that calls to the analytics if the user is on the pro plan. And we do that by doing const, creating a state, const analytics, set analytics equals use state, and the default for the state is null. And also we want to display to the user on which plan they are. Just they know, but we just want to show here how it's working. So having another state, use plan, use state with a default of an empty string. Okay, and we could here, for example, write in the plan. So if I reload that page, then you will see that it's now empty state plan, of course, because it's still not available basically, but that's not a problem. We use now an effect to call to the Meteor backend if the user is on the pro plan, and then update the states. So if you're not familiar with use effect, I suggest you to watch some React tutorials on use effect, but it's basically calling some externalities outside of this rendering loop based on some dependencies. And our dependencies are right now the user ID, because maybe the user is reloading the page and the user ID is not available yet, then it's undefined. But once everything is set up, the user ID is there. So this might affect if there is a user ID, if we want to re-render. And then the second is, is loading. I see some redundancy here right now. So as you can see, I'm calling is loading here and here. So we don't want to do that. I'm doing a little optimization here right now. So I'm calling this roles sub, and is loading is calling basically the roles sub, and then I can remove these. So based on these, if this has changed and the load is complete, then and the user ID exists, then we want to call the server. And of course we want to get the role first. So if not is loading, which means the subscription to the roles is complete, then we want to access the role. And this is by getting the array of roles.get roles for user ID, and then the scope plans, because there are multiple scopes, but we have the scope plans, and then we get the role. And my IDE just highlights I need to import roles. I just forgot. So let's add this here. Add roles from meteor /a landing /roles. And with this role, we can now check. First of all, we can set the plan to the role, because this is what we want to display to the user. Let's check in our browser. Now you can see it's the free plan. And I could easily do something now. I can meteor.log out the user, and you see it changed to please sign in to view analytics. And then I could again log in, but in this time not with foo but with bar, and then it shows me analytics on the pro plan, because this is the role this person has. And then going back, and then you see it's the free plan. So this is working out fine. We know that this person now is on the pro plan, or might be on the pro plan. So we can call if role equals pro. Then we call the meteor method get analytics. Get analytics, that's the name of the meteor method we have defined here on our server. If you take a look here, meteor method get analytics, that's the name. We're calling this, and then we always get a callback with error and result. And if there is an error, we use console.error for this right now, because of course usually it would implement something like a notification that there was an error, and then you do the logging and all that stuff. But we're only focusing on the permissions level right now. And then if there is data, we set analytics with the data. That's cool. So we have some analytics data here, but now we need to render it. And this is where Plotly comes into place. So first of all, I'm importing the plot. So Plotly is a nice library to render, visualize some plot data. We use react-plotly.js, and then this gives us a React component out of the box. But again, we only want to render this if there is an analytics data, and if there is no analytics data, then we render subscribe to the pro plan to unlock. This can even be improved, but that's fine for now. So if there's analytics data, we will render it. Otherwise, we just add a small message here: subscribe to a pro plan. Oh, okay. And if this is if there is the data plot, then this plot is self-closing component. So this plot gets data, and this data is an object with an this data is an array, and this has an x-axis, and this is our analytics. Oh, sorry, I forgot there is an object in this, because you could in Plotly you could render multiple diagrams in one plot, but we don't want to do that. We just have a single diagram plot. So it's the first object, and then it's analytics.x. And when I'm opening again the method, you can see here, this is what we return, y and x, right? On the y-axis, there are some numeric values. On the x-axis, there are the dates. So x is analytics.x, y is analytics.y. Then we need to define a type in Plotly. If you're interested in Plotly, you can just open the Plotly.js documentation. I will link it in the description to get to know it better. And we use the type scatter and the mode lines plus markers. This will basically create a line, and on each value there is like a little marker, and the marker has the color red, like a meteor. And there's one thing we also want to add for Plotly, and that's the layout. And this is basically width 320, height 240, and that's it. So for now, this should look good. So we have loaded the analytics from the meteor method here. We stored it and passed it to the Plotly. So let's open this. And as you can see, the user with the free plan gets just this message, subscribe to a pro plan. So of course, they can't load the data. Even with this user being logged in, I could do meteor call and then get analytics, but as you know from the previous one, this will throw an error. And you can see here in the error, payment required, you need to be on the Pro plan. So even if the user tries to circumvent this, it's not possible. So we can, sorry for that, that was not intended. We can run meteor.logout and then now log in as the bar user. And this bar user now gets access to the analytics and we render the data here. So summarizing this, there is a package in Meteor called A-Landing Roles. And this package offers you a very comprehensive, very detailed permission system that you can leverage in your applications to create certain restrictions on your user's permission. And we use this for some commercial plans. This is one way to implement commercial plans or implement features that are based on certain commercial plans, and you can do progressive plan-based feature enhancement here. And I hope this was helpful to you. If there are any questions, anything confusing or anything you haven't understood or you think was left out, please leave a comment and let us know so we can improve for further tutorials. If you liked this, please leave a like and also please subscribe to the channel, because then you will not miss any other tutorials, any updates. And also we have a weekly live stream on Friday, and I would be glad to see you there. That would be so awesome to get the community back together in our live stream and maybe chat together, have some great time together. Keep up to date with us with the following tutorials. There will be some follow-up things on that. And with this, I wish you a happy coding time and all the best.